Ma'am, are you really going there?
The guide asked, eyeing the fragile-looking young woman, who seemed out of place among the group of rugged men. The men nearby cast smug glances at her, and one couldn't resist sneering.
This hike isn't for women.
September 11th was approaching, and for Emmy, it was a day forever burned into her memory. It had been more than 20 years since she lost her older brother in the Twin Towers. The pain from that day never dulled. She could still hear his panicked voice over the phone, describing how the office filled with smoke as he desperately searched for a way out. Moments later, the call dropped, and his voice was gone forever. Back then, Emmy was a second-year medical student. The grief and shock that followed became the driving force behind her pursuit of saving lives. In a way, she thought, if she could save other people, it might somehow compensate for the loss of her brother. But staying in New York each year on September 11th, to relive those tragic moments felt unbearable. She decided that this year, she'd do something different, something difficult, something far from her memories. She Googled the toughest hikes, and chose the #1 difficult, Zion Canyon in Utah. The scenery would be a beautiful distraction, and the challenge, she hoped, would exhaust her enough to leave no room for painful thoughts. At the appointed time, Emmy arrived at the meeting point of the group, and was surprised to notice that she would be the only woman among rugged men on this hike. The guide's surprise was apparent when he saw Emmy.
Ma'am, are you really going with us?
He asked.
What's the problem?
Replied Emmy, seeing his hesitation.
Well, this is an extremely tough hike, and honestly, unprepared women usually do not risk attempt it. What should we do, if you can't continue halfway?
The men nearby couldn't resist sneering.
This hike isn't for women.
One of the men chimed in with a smirk.
Yeah, we won't be carrying you back when you can't keep up.
Emmy's temper flared. She had spent her entire life fighting off assumptions about what women could, and could not do.
I'm an adult, I know what I signed up for. If I can't handle it, I'll deal with it myself. I'm not expecting any of you to help me, she replied sharply. Suddenly, a prophetic thought flashed through Emmy's head. But if something happens to one of you, I am always obliged to help.
The first stretch of the hike went smoothly. Emmy perfectly coped with the difficulties of the hike. As a physician, she knew that mental strength and resilience often mattered more than sheer muscle power. The group paused at a cliff with a breathtaking view of the canyon. One of the men, the same one who had mocked Emmy earlier, stepped dangerously close to the edge to take a selfie. In an instant, he lost his balance, and plummeted down a few meters to a ledge below. Everyone rushed to the edge. The man was alive, but with multiple injuries and quietly moaning. Panic set in. Emmy called 911. The dispatcher promised help, but it would be at least 30 minutes before a rescue helicopter could arrive. Emmy's eyes quickly assessed the situation. Her attention was immediately drawn to an open fracture of his shin, and severe bleeding from a lacerated wound. In a calm, authoritative voice, Emmy spoke up.
He doesn't have 30 minutes. He will die before, from massive bleeding. I need to get down there and help.
The group stared at her, stunned. Emmy met their gazes, realizing they had no idea who she really was.
I'm the head of the trauma department at New York Clinic. Help me save his life.
After quickly examining everyone nearby, she stopped at one.
Unfasten and give me your belt.
The men, now respectful and cooperative, helped Emmy down to the ledge. She quickly applied an improvised tourniquet with a leather belt. Then tore to pieces her shirt, to fix the fracture, and bandage several wounds. For the next 20 minutes, she managed to keep him stable, until the helicopter arrived. The next day, Emmy visited the man at a nearby clinic. His face was pale, but his gratitude was overwhelming.
I owe you my life. I judged you without knowing anything about you. I'm so sorry,
he said, his voice thick with emotion. Emmy smiled softly.
You don't owe me anything. I became a doctor to save lives, no matter whose. That's what matters. As
she left the clinic, Emmy felt something shift inside her. For years, The pain of losing her brother had weighed heavily on her, but on this day, at this hour, years later, almost to the minute, she had saved someone's life, alone, in unusual extreme conditions, almost with her bare hands. And in doing so, she had found a kind of peace, hadn't known she was searching for.
If you like our content, could you please subscribe this channel, and press the bell icon? This will be of great help to the development of our channel, as we are going to provide you huge amount of interesting information about different places all over the world, and more.